welcome to another knitting tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to join your work in the round and then work using magic loop. So for this pattern I'm actually doing a hat, so I have cast on 100 stitches because that is what was required, and if you've been following the pattern then you'll know we use stitch markers every 20 stitches when we were casting on so that we could keep count of our 100 stitches. And then what I did when I knit the first row of 2x2 rib is I just placed another stitch marker in the middle at 50 stitches so I know where half of my stitches are. This will help me when I'm wanting to split my stitches for working in magic loop. So the first thing you need to do when you want to join your stitches in the round is make sure that this is not twisted. If it is twisted like this, then when you join in the round it's always going to be twisted, and we don't want that. We want them to all be flat. So we just make sure, kind of run your fingers along and make sure that they're all going in the right way, that they're all flat all along here. Run our fingers along. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to split these in half. So we know you can either count it, or if you've marked it previously you can just give a tug on this and pull, and that will kind of split your stitches so you know you've got half and half. So I'm going to move these down. The side that does not have the working yarn is the side that we're going to push onto the needles to start with. Again, take care not to twist your stitches. Okay, so we don't have to have all of them there, but we just want the beginning ones on the needle because this is the one we're going to be working from. This is going to be our left hand needle. Then we again make sure that this is actually twisted. If you can see there, that has been twisted, so we need to push that over. Oops. Just make sure that this is not twisted all the way. Okay, now we're going to push this off the needle because this is going to be our right hand needle and we're going to be working onto this needle. So we just pull it a little bit. And you can see we have like a little loop on this end. That's good. We want there to be a loop here. We don't want these stitches to be right next to each other. So we're going to pick up this side, the side that we're going to be using as our left hand needle. And then we pick up our right hand needle. Just check one last time to make sure these stitches aren't twisted, and they're not. So we pull this through a little bit, making sure that we don't lose this loop here. We can pull through a little bit and then we just start working as we usually would. So we grab the end here that is the end coming from the ball, the working yarn, and we insert our needle so that we can work knit stitch. I like to hold on the tail end, the end that's not connected, just to give it a little bit of tension, and then I use my working yarn and I start working my 2x2 rib. Knit 1, knit 2, purl 1, purl 2. So at this stage I don't need to keep the tension on this yarn anymore, and we are sort of joined here. You will see a little bit, there's a little bit here. You can see there's a little bit of a string there. That will close up as we work the next 2 or 3 rows. Don't worry about it, it'll look totally fine. It happens when anyone joins in the round. So we can just continue working this half, these 50 stitches. My cat is now playing with the cable. So we're just going to continue working these 50 stitches and then I'll tell you what to do when we get to this end. So I've got about halfway and I just wanted to pop in to show you, this is why it's called magic loop, because we have a little loop on this end and a little loop on this end, and you can kind of adjust, you can tug on it to adjust how big each side is, but you always want to have a little bit of a loop so that you have half of the stitches on the one side and half of the stitches on the other side. Alright, so I've come to my last 2 stitches, which I will knit with you here. Let's just adjust the focus. So I'll knit the last 2 stitches with you here. These are 2 knit stitches, so we just knit these last 2. And so we finished the first 50 stitches and we're coming to the second 50. So we can slip this marker off now because this marker is not important anymore. We've already split in half. So what you do, make sure that you're holding this needle and you pull this back loop that is attached to your back set of stitches so that you can get that needle to move closer to those stitches. You can see they're closer there. And now we can pull this front needle. Make sure that you just hold lightly on your stitches so that you can pull this needle through. And you pull through. The reason you pull the back one first is so that you still maintain this loop here. So we pull these through. And then we turn the work to the next side. So we're now pushing, oops, sorry, this needle's making an ugly noise. We push these back stitches that we haven't knit yet onto the needle. We can make sure they scoot along the cable a little bit. And then making sure it's not twisted over here, we can pick up the other needle, pull it through a little bit so we have our little bit of a loop, making sure there's still a loop on this side. And we can, we can start our work again. So here we have 2 purl stitches. So I have my yarn going in front of my needle because we're going to purl here. Get our purl on here, grab your work and start purling. I want to pull these first couple of stitches fairly tight so that we don't get a gap where we've changed from the back to the front. So now that I've inserted my needle, I'm going to pull fairly tight on this one so that there's no gap over here where we've changed needles. And I'm going to pull my second one, still holding fairly tight on this, move it to the back to do my 2 knit stitches, and then do another 2 purl stitches. And I find that once I've done 5 or 6, depending on whether you're working in what sort of stitch you're working in, I'm doing 6 here because I'm doing 2x2 rib, but now I've pulled it fairly tight and that's going to do well for closing this gap here. And we can just continue working in the pattern, in this case 2x2 rib, across the back needle. So as you can see, I've finished working across here, and what I do is if I want to put this work down, I just make sure that both needle ends are close to the stitches and we have a loop on this side, and I can just put the work down and pick it up when I'm ready to work on it again. Another little tip you might want to do is, because you're essentially working in a round and every time you get back to the start you've completed one round or one row if it was flat, you want to remember which side is your starting side. So this is where your little stitch marker comes in handy again. What we do is we flip it back. So I know this was the back side, this was the last side I worked, so this is my front side. So I'm just going to take this little stitch marker and loop it in here, and then I can move it up with the work if I feel I need to, but I will always know that once I've knit this side and then I flip it, I turn it round because I finished working that side, and then we work from this side to there, and once I've worked that side I've worked one whole round or one whole row depending on how you want to think about it. And that will help you with your pattern if your pattern says that you need to, if your pattern says that you need to work, let's say 10 rounds of 2x2 ribbing, then you'll know you've got to do both of these sides and you will be beginning ready to work on this side, and that will be your end of your round. So I hope that makes sense.